G'day, Kobi. Welcome to the show.
Hey, mate. Thank you, and good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. You too. So quick disclaimer here for everybody listening. I know Kobi. I've known Kobi now for a couple of years. I was a guest speaker actually at one of Kobi's business summits that he did last year, who had quite a lot of big headline acts in there. So I felt very humbled to be invited on there, Kobi. So thank you once again for that, mate. I've been super excited about having you on the show. I've got a lot of time and respect for you. I think you've built a fabulous business in best practice. But I guess one of the things I really wanted to chat about today is just about your journey. I think with a lot of our guests, we've talked about their specific transaction and kind of what happened in the deal, right? But your journey's been an interesting one because I think you've seen a lot of challenges in your life and along this business journey, and you've built a fabulous business, and you've even to the point where you've had a lot of people come and tap you on the shoulder. And I think, you and I have had a bit of a chat about how that can kind of lead to a lot of time wasting and even disaster at times of various people. And so, look, mate, I'm so keen to just unpack your story a little bit because there's so many lessons in there for entrepreneurs who are on their journey, growing a business, and even those who might even have one eye on an eventual exit. So, mate, I'm going to hand over to you because I'd love you to kick off, and maybe you can give us a bit of background and help paint the picture of who Kobi Simmat is.
Yeah, look, I think I'll tell a story that goes over a 5-year journey, and I think that really sets up, I guess, the context for where we are today and where we can go. And it's the kind of exit from a business that you don't want to have. And so my journey starts. This story starts when I'm 14 years old. I'm going to Davidson High School in Frenchs Forest in Sydney, and in the late 80s, that high school was renowned for a lot of entrepreneurs selling a lot of organic produce in school. And so it wasn't a school with a great reputation, but there was a lot of entrepreneurial people, and they would grow their produce in the local national park and then sell it in high school. Now,
so we're talking the not approved by the Food approved. And Drug Administration. Yeah.
No, definitely not TGA approved drugs. Yeah. No, I didn't really partake in that, but it was a high school full of suburban families, white collar families, a lot of parents, working in the finance industry, from Frenchs Forest commuting into Sydney, on the bus or the train. And so, my high school friends, a lot of them were double income families, 2 or 3 kids, quarter acre block, backyard kind of thing. I actually myself grew up in a suburb called Cottage Point, waterfront residence around what was an emerging area as one of the high value suburbs of Sydney at the time, deep waterfronts, boats, wealthy families. And so I grew up in this contradiction of, on the weekends, I'm in this very wealthy suburb, and then I'm going to this state high school. And so I got to meet lots of great people from all walks of life. So I'm 14 years old. My dad is an architect. He's got his own business. He's got about 30 staff, about 15 company cars parked out the front of the office at 9 o'clock in the morning. And he's got people, coming to and fro. At the time, there was a boom in the housing market in Sydney and specifically project homes, expansion suburbs. And so they were submitting, up to 25 approvals every Friday. So they would do all the design work during the week and then lodge 25 sets of plans at council, and then it'd take a couple of weeks to have those houses approved. And it was just this sausage factory of construction. And we were, he was winning awards for design and energy efficiency and all that kind of stuff in the late 80s.
Mate, a couple of weeks for approvals. He must have been special or known someone. Jeez.
Well, I mean, it's obviously they got away with a lot, and the world and the laws have changed in that time for those reasons. But they were copy paste houses on residential estate developments, and so there really wasn't any environmental planning or control required. But I guess the story is essentially that I grew up in a family with a father that started an architectural practice. He also did a bit of construction and a bit of development. So I didn't have, the man in my life, my dad, my leader, was an entrepreneur, and I didn't have any other example to follow. So I'm sitting in a social studies class, 14 years old, right in the middle of high school, and the teacher says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "A business owner." Everybody else, fireman, pilot, nurse, doctor, vet, zookeeper, all employee jobs. And at the time, the word entrepreneur didn't exist. Entrepreneurial pursuit was the word, but it wasn't a label for anyone yet. So it was just business owner. So I'm going to have my own business. And I guess when I look back at that and I think, what was I thinking? I was thinking, well, we had family holidays where dad would be doing site inspections and looking at projects, and we'd be staying in a hotel and doing family activities while dad was working. And he kind of built this national business and had projects all over the place and lots of developers that he worked with. And so then the people we'd have at dinner parties were developers and business people or successful people having houses commissioned. And he did a lot of really high value houses and a lot of really big houses. So, we would dinner parties with those families and build friendships and multiple houses for multiple people. And so you'd be in amongst those houses while they're being built and have a lot of fun playing, with my brother and sister, lots of boating, and we were in that kind of family. And so it just kind of made sense. Go ahead.
So I mean, I'm getting this picture here that, business owner / quite entrepreneurial father in terms of he's got a number of pursuits even outside his core business. But even the people you're hanging with in your family time and social circles are fundamentally business owners. Is that right? Yeah.
100%. And one person that's a highlight, which I think is worth noting, is somebody who commissioned a really big house to be built, and he did that with money from exiting a dental business. So he was the dental parts wholesaler,
Gotcha.
the parts for braces and dentures and all that kind of stuff. And he had just sold his business for $3 million.
Wow.
And so, and that's back in the mid 80s, and he commissioned this house that I think was about $500,000 to build. He had the latest Mercedes, all that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting to be around those people. So I kind of really didn't have a choice as to where I would go. Fast forward 2 or 3 years, and I've got a great sense of pride for my dad. I'm his biggest fan, with lots of great buildings and lots of great developments. And at the beginning of the 90s, the construction industry collapsed. Now, there's some intricacies to the story which we won't go into, but essentially my dad's business collapsed. And he lost a whole bunch of property. He had to basically liquidate a whole bunch of properties to kind of try to keep the business afloat. And then eventually we had our house repossessed in 1994.
Oh, man. And to paint the scene there for those who are, getting a bit on, of our age and older, I mean, we remember the recession we had to have, right? So you talk about the property collapse. I mean, this was not just property. It was hotels, tourism, everything collapsed, right?
Absolutely.
So it was a tough time, but mate, to lose the family home, I mean, that must have been devastating for everybody.
Absolutely devastating. And I won't drop the bank in it. Like, I don't like that bank. I won't do business with that bank. That bank is, they had their one chance, and I'll never do business with that bank. And it's one of the big four. And there was corruption in that bank, and that contributed to this situation, that all came out in the court case and the washout afterwards. And they were found liable, and they were found in breach, and there's new rules, and we've just been through the Royal Commission. I think, they need to be held accountable. Anyway, long story short, that we were given 4 days to move out of our family home.
Oh, man.
The locks were changed, and the sheriff came with the locksmiths at 11 o'clock on the Friday, which was the notification. They gave us the notification on the Monday. We had to be out by 11 o'clock on the Friday. Two sheriffs came with a locksmith, and they changed the locks. Now, knowing the house, we could have still got back into it, because it was an architect's house. It wasn't finished, so it was quite easy to get back into. But my mum, they were basically going to put the property on the market. And my mum, the lowest of the low point was when the two sheriffs grabbed my mum by the arms and dragged her out of the house crying. She was trying to clean the windows because the property was going on the market.
Oh,
because
man.
With the repossessions, the banks just, if there was plates in the cupboard or food in the fridge, whatever was left in the house mortgagee in possession, the house went on the market. And I have this very vivid memory of of my mum crying and being really distraught because she just wanted to clean the windows and clean the house so it was presentable for sale. Because when your house gets repossessed, the bank liquidates it, they put it to auction with no reserve, and you only get, the bank gets paid out. They're just interested in getting their mortgage paid out. They don't care whether there's a bit more money. We were trying to obviously get the upside.
Yes.
And so mum was like, well, I need the house to get the best price possible in a bad climate, just so that we can get the debt covered, because if the house didn't cover the debt, they would have come after us further.
Oh, man.
So I don't want to labor on it for too long, because you grow from your very lowest point. So I think that, we realized the real risk. It came to fruition, the real risk of being an entrepreneur and what you do put on the line in business. And that drives me every day. And so, I appreciate the compliments on building a great business. I built a great business because I've looked at the building blocks and the foundations that are required, and I've searched for those things, the hygiene principles and the motivating principles and the fundamental model principles, to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself. And I've and a lot of people have noticed that I over-index on those foundational principles, but as a result, it's catapulted us to success.
Yeah.
So it's had kind of the reverse effect, in terms of actually being so regimented and into routine in terms of basic business model principles and drivers. We've got a great result.
Yeah, and I think we'll get into this a little bit, because I want to talk a little bit about systems and scalability, because I think everybody kind of knows, at a basic level, that you can't grow without systems, right? Once you get beyond a couple of people running around being good at what they do, if you want to get bigger, you need to systemize. And fundamentally, I mean, this is somewhat where kind of best practice leans in, right? So mate, tell us a bit about best practice. What does it actually do?
Yeah, look, it's got three core components to the business. What we're really passionate about is three things, and it's our why, if you like. So I'll talk about, the why, how, what, if you like. Yep. So the why is about helping organizations to be great places to work, so that great talent bangs on your door and says, I want to work for you. People say, how do you find great people? Well, I find them by going to the front door and opening it, and they're standing there waiting to come in. It's not about going into the market, and it's really easy to do, but we kind of neglect some of those basic principles. So creating great places to work, great places to buy from. So focusing on the people listening, the buyer's experience, the individuality of the buyer's experience, the different types of buyers. The riches are in the niches, and I hate the word niche, but it rhymes, right? The niches, and it's, yes, you can have your core product or service, but build 4 or 5 front doors to your house. Don't have a front door and a back door to your business. Have 5 front doors so that different types of customers can come in different doors. So creating a great buying experience, and then ultimately a great investment. So great place to work, great place to buy from, great place to invest in. And that is around exactly your topic. That's why we work quite well together, because I'm focused for some of our clients on that priority of, well, what does a succession plan, exit plan, divestment look like for them?
And so what service does best practice deliver to its clients?
Awesome. So I guess so when we get down to it, we started a core business where we looked at process improvement. So there's a couple of different ways you can attack that. You can be a management consultant, you can be a business coach, you can be an auditor. So we started a business in 2004 doing quality assurance auditing and quality assurance management systems and writing management systems following the international standards. So a lot of people may have heard of ISO 9001 and the quality management standard. And when they think about that, they imagine, or they've seen, 5 milk crates full of folders and policies and procedures have been written until it's a bigger book than Gone with the Wind. So, that's where we started, and we started in 94 with that, that concept. I wrote some for my dad's business. I went away from the industry for a little while, and then we restarted again in 2004. And we've been operating since 2004. So our core foundations were helping people write operations manuals, helping people write policy, helping people write procedure. Then when we did that, we go into a business, we watch what's doing, and then we'll start documenting it for them, saying, and there are various benefits to having things documented. I'll comment on what the future looks like, because please don't assume, anyone listening, that you do that now, because we've moved away from that. But we started the business with auditing, then we got into OH&S auditing, and we hired some OH&S technicians, then environmental management, asset management, and now it's cybersecurity. So what happened in the end of the 2000s is this label risk management or risk management advisor came out. And for any of the business owners who've ever filled out a professional indemnity form, you've now got a comment about your risk management plan. And so we started writing risk management plans and implementing risk management plans with people. So what does the business look like now? We've definitely still got that auditing business. We're the largest Australian-owned auditing, quality assurance and certification auditing company. So best practice certification. And for those people listening, you might now notice as you're driving around the streets, you'll see the best practice ticks on people's vehicles. A lot of our clients wear our brand on their vehicles and on their business cards and on their websites as a sign of recognition. We've spun off a business coaching company. So we started to realize, actually, we want to do more work with people. We found that we can actually be more impactful instead of writing the best policies and procedures on the planet. And we can do a very good job of that. And we're very good at it. We're well versed, 17 years in this industry. But we found that actually, when we talk about impact to the bottom line, impact to the top line, impact to the business, the people piece we found was actually we were more successful in actually seeing significant growth in businesses. So we spun off Next Practice, and Next Practice is our business coaching company. We're training coaches, we're building coaches, we're also building out a career path for our senior people to move from, say, being an auditor into being a business coach, and coaching people on growth plans and strategy. And we can get into the metrics of that, because I can go through the 10 elements to strategy. And then the final business is recruitment company, because we love people. And so we went, it made sense to place people in our clients, because we know our client system, we know their businesses. And so we can go looking, as their representative, we can go looking for people that suit our clients. And so our business, best practice recruitment, is exploding right now. It's going really well.
Yeah, fantastic. So coming back to ISO and doing standard operating procedures, SOPs, all that sort of stuff. I mean, so best practice. Just clarify for me, because I think there's the trap that some people look at that stuff and go, yeah, I've heard of that. That's all for like manufacturing companies or something like that. Like, so that's not me. So maybe you can just clarify for us a little bit. What are the sort of sectors or even company types that generally use your service? Are they products and services? Are they, can you give us a sense of the mix?
Yeah, 100%. So right now, there's definitely a breakout industry in construction. And so, if you look at our organization, you look at our client mix, the professional services to construction and construction are definitely the breakout areas and the growing industries, and the turnover of those companies in those industries.
Yep. So professional service, so actual service businesses are now going down this path?
Absolutely. So some of our long-standing clients are architects, engineers, accountancy practices, human resource practices, any other service to construction, commercial cleaners, small, medium, and large construction companies. There is definitely a bias towards anyone who wants to do any form of government work. You will need to have a management system in place. And so there is 60% of our clients do that work and get that certification so they can tender on government work and infrastructure work. So you can't work in government infrastructure or tender to government without this. And a lot of people think they can start lodging tenders, and they can naively think that, I'll just lodge the tender, and if I win it, I'll get certified. The cart doesn't come before the horse. You've got to set yourself, if you want to work for government, you've got to set yourself up properly and professionally, because you're dealing with government bureaucrats who want to tick boxes. And if you can't tick that box, you get put in the out pile.
Yeah. You don't even get looked at, right? Interesting. So, mate, tell me more about. So, where's the industry going? Because you know this idea of writing manuals, and I think once again, you know, we're showing our age here, but you know, I've been in companies that had these big, dirty, big folders that they'd slap on your desk on day one and say, "Here's your induction. Read this," and you know, people like me end up jumping out the window. So, what does it look like now? How's it evolving?
Yeah, look, I think you know, everybody listening, your organization has an operating system. Now, it is most likely, the operating system is most likely in the entrepreneur or business leader's head and the businesses that start to see some success and growth. So say, for example, you get to kind of 15, 20 people full-time, 15 to 20 full-time people, you start to see things getting captured and routines, and I like to call them traditions, established. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people say, oh, no, we don't need that. Well, you've actually already got it and you build it subconsciously. So where is the industry growing? I think the first thing that I'd like people to consider is the average age of employees and the workforce. And we've just seen some really good numbers in COVID because they've been talking about, you know, who are the people causing cases in COVID and in the pandemic. And that is the 35 to 45-year-old age bracket. That is the largest population in the workforce. And that kind of makes sense. It's logical, but we've seen it with COVID because they've said they're the high-risk people that are the super spreaders, because they're going to work and they're going home and they've got young families and the kids bring it home from school and then they take it off. So recognizing that 35 to 45-year-old age bracket is how does a 35-year-old know what to do? And they do, I'm going to cut to the chase, rely very heavily on Google. And so what we are doing now with a modern management system is I want to ask the audience a question and say, well, what does a management system look like in 1994? And we both know that it was 5 milk crates full of folders and you jump out the window. When we fast forward to 2025, what does a management system look like? My job is to be thinking about 2025, thinking about who the workforce is going to be in 2025. What are the fundamental skills that they've picked up in high school and university and their first couple of years of work experience? And what can they bring to the workforce? And how do we seamlessly have those people set up to deliver the promises that company makes to their customers? And that's fundamentally the question. The rhetorical question is, how do your people know how to deliver the promise to the customer? Now, if you look at a restaurant, for example, there might be a little instruction sheet in the kitchen that kind of talks about the main parts to the dish, but the head chef there is supervising everybody's doing the right thing. So let's call the head chef the head of operations. And he's supervising some qualified people and some apprentices and some laborers. That's a modern management system. So it's not a folder in the pantry of the commercial kitchen. No one's running in and out every 5 minutes, opening up those folders and reading that stuff. They need some basic reminders. Don't forget to do this. Don't forget to do that. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do that. Maybe some pictures of what the dish looks like. You know, you can go into many of the different types of Asian restaurants and the menu is a picture of the dish and you get what you order what the picture is and it comes out looking like the picture. So what I'm looking at now, and your question, and I'll finish on this, is that what does a modern management system look like? Where's the industry going? You need to look at how the 20-year-olds are consuming information, researching and gathering information. They're watching videos on YouTube. They're watching videos on Facebook. They're searching on Facebook. They're searching on Snapchat. They're following each other's geographic location on Snapchat. They are to a certain extent looking at Google, but they're not necessarily reading big passages of text anymore. They're looking at images. They're looking at pictures. And if you look at my 10-year-old son, he is voice searching.
Yes.
And so your business needs to be thinking about, and you don't have to do it straight away, but you need to be gearing yourself up for voice search and voice search. And so however the data is curated, but Google has automatic subtitles. So you could be just recording video instructions for how to run your company and what to do, turn on the automatic subtitles, and then your staff can voice search and it can trigger videos, and then they will probably watch videos reading the subtitles on triple speed. So
mm.
the more that you can video key processes or key things or key tasks in your organization on a smartphone, load them into YouTube right now and have them as unlisted videos, or load them into video software or a cloud-based video system for your company. That is what the modern policy procedure process looks like in 2025. And your staff who are 20 right now will be 25. This is 2021, so any 21-year-olds are going to be 25. Any 25-year-olds are going to be 29, and they are doing voice search. So, it's going to be, hey, whatever. I won't say Siri because my phone will talk to me. But, it's going to be that. That's what's coming. And so we've got to be ready for that. And to a certain extent, think about how someone can take in a heap of information, get the guidance and advice they need, and then continue on to run your business without you being there.
Yeah. And interesting, I heard the stat the other day, and I'm probably going to slightly misquote it, but it was words to the effect of over 75% of all search for people under the age of 25 is done by voice now. So, yes. and that kind of blew me away a little bit, because I'm just starting to kind of get into it, right? Each morning I'm getting dressed and I ask my phone, I won't say its name either, to tell me what the weather's like, because do I need to be, especially in this transition season, right? So do I wear the jumper or not? But, it's interesting seeing where this is going, and it's clearly the beginning of a massive shift in the way we do things. I'm going to shift gear in a second, but I want to ask what might sound like a really dumb, obvious question, but I think it's important to ask, because I think there'll be people who listen to this podcast and hear you speak, Kobi, and go, yeah, but things kind of work. They just kind of work. Things work. Why do I need to have a management system? Why do I need to go do all these videos? I don't even like my photo being taken. Why would I want to record videos? It's just working. This all sounds like a pain in the butt. So can you give us a bit of a sense of why somebody should document, and videoing is just another way of documenting things, right? But why should I go and create a management system like this? What's the benefit to me?
Yeah, look, this. I took 9 weeks off this year, and I had 4 work phone calls in 9 weeks. Yeah. So my team delivered their top line revenue just below target. They delivered profit on target. Over the first quarter of the 21-22 financial year, they were $1,000 out on profit. So, the benefit to me of doing it is I've recorded a bunch of videos. I invest in a lot in training and professional development on a frequent basis. And it's more about the routine than what you do. And we've got those things captured, and I've empowered my managers to do it. Now, for me, the benefit was I got to go and take 9 weeks off. And I've now got this reputation for being, one of the Sydney people that dodged all the lockdowns, because I left a couple of weeks before the Sydney lockdown. I went into Queensland. I was able to miss all of the Queensland lockdowns in Townsville and the Sunshine Coast. Have a great driving holiday with my family, because we obviously couldn't go overseas. I was able to go down Western New South Wales and dodge all the lockdowns and end up at the snow for a week in the snow at our ski lodge, and then come back to Sydney, and all while the business made its revenue target. It was on budget and profit, and then I came back and had 4 weeks of the marathon Sydney lockdown. That was the benefit to me. Now I've got kind of the generic textbook benefit. The generic textbook benefit is, well, the first thing I'll say is, if you don't feel like doing it, don't do it. But if you are somebody who would like to see your business grow and outperform average companies, so if your business is a business that's destined for more, and if you're somebody who wants to grow your business and you want to outperform everybody else, so the top percentile companies, as analyzed by McKinsey's last year through the end of the 2020 part of the pandemic and into 2021, the companies that outperformed the top growers, so they by 2.5 times. So they grew at a rate of 2.5 times everybody else. So let's assume everybody else is growing at the same rate. And most of the businesses listening, I'm going to be cynical and say your business probably is only growing at the rate of the economy and the businesses around it. It's not actually outperforming. So if you're somebody who wants your business to grow at 2 times or 2.5 times, which is the top percentile, and there was obviously there was a few companies that grew faster than that. There's a whole bunch of invisible assets and intangible assets. And it's investing in looking at process, and it's investing in looking time in motion studies and looking at regularly looking for small improvements. And I'll just give you an example. If you were training for the Olympics, you can't show up on the first day and set an Olympic record in the swimming pool. It takes laps and laps and laps and repetitions and repetitions and repetitions. And so I guess the nuts and bolts of a management system is, and the question to people listening is, how often do you stop and look at a small part of your business and make a small change and improvement? And it's the small changes and improvements on a daily basis over 365 days that sees a monumental movement of businesses' efficiency and performance over a 12-month period. That's all I've been doing. It's not rocket science. But it takes a huge amount of discipline to get up and go to the business gym and do the work.
Yeah, no, spot on. And I think if you can do 1% change per day, I mean, that's 365% in the year, right? So even if you just do the work days, it's still over 200%. So it's I think it makes a lot of sense. So, people wanting to grow. And I love the example you gave of your situation. I remember chatting to you when you were on your holiday too. And I thought, oh, smart man. I was in Canberra when it got announced. And I thought, should I just go back to Sydney and be in lockdown, or should I do the bolt down to the snow as well? And I should have done the bolt. I made the wrong decision there. But, mate, I want to shift gear here, because what you're talking about there, taking a holiday, being able to take 9 weeks off, 4 phone calls. I mean, if I could summarize that in a word, I call that freedom, right? This sense of freedom. And I reckon that most business owners go into business, and I don't want to sound too woo-woo here, but this sense of freedom, I think, is actually what drives it. People may not call it freedom, but people kind of want to be their own boss. They don't want to answer to somebody else. They want to be able to kind of work their own hours. And I definitely think people want to earn more money, or the money that they believe that they're worth. And I think if you take all of those complex subjects, you could roll it into one word and say it's kind of freedom, really, freedom to be who you are. And I think that, when we start to unpack that, I think a lot of business owners don't necessarily get there. They often feel trapped by their business. If it underperforms, there's stress there, in terms of their own personal, even their own personal wealth. Often their business is their largest asset. They're completely undiversified. They're overweight in that class. It doesn't necessarily give the framework for the kind of life they want. And I think, on this show, we talk a lot about this, that business is really just it's an asset. It's not you. It's just an asset. It's a vehicle to deliver you the life you want. So, start getting clear on what kind of life you want, and then build the business to deliver on it, right? But as a part of that, I guess I wanted to sort of talk about, this idea of growth, because a lot of people listening to this will be saying, well, my business is not where I need it to be to give me that life. So how do I get there, right? How do I get this business to do what I need it to do? And so this idea of growth I find really, really interesting, because growth to a lot of people means chase more revenue, cut a bit more cost, squeeze a bit more profit. And I guess, and we talk a bit on this show about, what are true value drivers in a business? And, Exit Advisory is our main firm. We sell a lot of businesses. We do a lot of transactions. When you look at a business valuation, and there's lots of different methods, but the most common one, right, is a multiple, a number times your net profit. So when we talk about growing, I just have this, I kind of break it into these two parts. We can grow our profit, but how do we grow that number, that multiple, right? And I know you've had offers on your business, and I want to get to that eventually, but when you talk about systems and operating systems, I see that actually having an impact on both of those levers. Run a better business, earn more money, but also build assets in your business. So, if you can take a holiday for 9 weeks, you must have a better multiple than the average guy who's stuck in his business for 40 to 60 hours a week. So I don't know, do you have some thoughts on that? Yeah, talk me through your view on this sort of stuff.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I think that it's there's a couple of things. Human behavior is it's really easy to be reactive. So it's really easy to kind of just react to whatever's happening, take orders, process the orders, fix the mistakes and problems, kind of try to do things, convince yourself that you've got a quality product. But actually, if you ask yourself the question, maybe you don't.
Because so working in the business, though. It sounds like working in the business, right?
That's right. So exactly right. And just being reactive. And I think it's really easy to just kind of go through the morning routine, put on the work outfit and go to work in the morning and right, throw it at me. It takes a lot of discipline to turn off the smartphone, not check your email, don't take calls to say 11 or 12 o'clock, and work on your business for half the day and then work in your business for the other half of the day. So I think I fell into the trap of, and I've been in that trap that you talk about, I've fallen into that trap of having this kind of ideal about what this looks like, and then not knowing how to get there, essentially, how to grind out of it. And I like to use a lot of analogies, and it's the analogy of kind of how do I cross over to the other side of the river where I'm on holidays and I'm on freedom, and it's kind of, it's almost binary, it's on or it's off. The reality is that it is about small movements and small changes. And so the best piece of advice I've got, the first thing, actually, let me answer the first part of the question, which is, for me, I'm building an asset. I'm not building a job. I don't want a job. I want an asset. So I want to go and do other things. And so I ask myself the question, what did I do last week that I can delegate to somebody? And a lot of people will be, I'm not making enough profit. And if I delegate it to somebody, then actually they're going to take the profit and I'm going to have nothing to do and no income. And all my staff are going to take all of the money, or all of my business is going to take all my money. There's nothing left over. So I'm going to stay there and do some stuff so that I can actually collect some money.
Yep.
The reality is that is your first and fundamental mistake. You're not giving your team a chance to practice and grow and get more efficient. And like growing a hedge in the garden, you've got to grow it. You prune off the bits that aren't going in the direction you want. And you've got to keep doing that. So you've got to keep pruning, small pruning to get your business to grow in the right direction. And then you've got to be auditing what you do and don't do. Now, you might be doing some things that you don't like doing. You're not very good at it. That's the reality. And there's a shitload in this business that I'm not really very good at. In fact, almost everything. Because I've got people now that I've given them time to practice. They're better at it than me because they go out with their friends on the weekend, they have a weekend switched off, and they come back and they switch on and they do their job and they do it really well and they're focused on it and they're practicing and they're passionate about it. So I think for me, it's an asset, and I'm moving on to build another asset and another asset. And I'm looking, as you know, I'm looking at buying more businesses so that I can go and do that. And so instead of taking my money out of my business and putting it into the stock exchange or into real estate, I'm taking it out. I'm putting some in those places, but I'm putting it back into my business and I'm putting it into other things so that my investments are diversified across the portfolio. And this asset is part of my portfolio, performs very well. And I've got to keep polishing it and cleaning it and doing some mechanical maintenance on it, like any operating machine or organism,
Yeah. So question here, and I'm not suggesting this is you've had this particular situation in your business, but I'm curious in your thoughts here. A lot of people who are running one business, or they've got all their eggs in this one basket, that business is probably their largest asset. In many cases, actually worth more than their home, right?
Yeah.
When something happens in that business that is, we've just come through a global pandemic, right? Some people have had their businesses turned on its head. There can be a level of stress, right, that comes with being so overweight in one asset that is now underperforming or potentially even facing catastrophe, right? And I'm curious, like that I think can play with people's minds and even impact their decision making. As a guy who's out there building multiple businesses, is it a bit easier to be less emotionally overwhelmed and stuff like that if when things do go up and down?
Yeah, look, I think there's a basic kind of personal principle that I have, which is I don't celebrate any wins. And so I don't worry about the losses. So so I think a lot of people go, oh, I made a huge amount of money this month. Yes. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I okay, cool. It went to plan. What's the next part of the plan? If it was, if I had a big month, right at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a month with a massive loss. We had the loss. I remember standing on the balcony at the back of my house. I drove in the driveway. past the letterbox. As I was driving, I got quite a long driveway. I'm driving down the driveway and I'm thinking to myself, this thing's going to go on for 3 years. And I was thinking about it this morning. We're not quite at 2 years yet. We'll get to February next year. We'll be at 2 years. It's going to play out for another year after that. So hello, February 2023. Talk to me then about the pandemic being over. Get ready for more lockdowns. Get ready for more restrictions. The politicians here in Australia are placating to an economy and a group of humans who are tired, and we've done our bit. It's not improving, and so very short-term minded. But I'm betting on this thing playing out. Now, if it doesn't, then that's great because we're going to go even better. But I'm planning for this for more hurdles and more potholes. Yeah. But I don't. I remember standing there and having this massive loss and going, I can't believe I'm back in this position again. And I was all of those fears from, back in that, being 14 years old and then 18 years old and my father losing the business, all those fears rise up for me. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I turn that into energy? How do I turn that into focus? And what am I doing about that? Like, instead of getting caught up in it. So I don't celebrate the wins. I don't worry about the losses. I'm conscious of it. But Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, talks about the Stockdale Paradox, which is, you have to confront the brutal facts, but you can be optimistic, but confront the brutal facts. Don't be delusionally optimistic. And so that's me as a person, very stoic. And I think that what you've got to be doing is and I'm a risk management, 10 years ago, I was a risk management consultant. And so I'm thinking ahead and I'm thinking, okay, what if someone leaves? What am I doing about that? And so I ask myself the question, what am I doing about that? Things come up and I panic about it and I go, what am I doing about that? And then I get out my to-do list and I write a response to that. And I say, okay, we're going to run out of cash. We're not going to make any sales. What do I do about that? So I've built a business that has an average transaction of $7,000 across 1,000 customers, and so I don't have, like a lot of businesses, like one of the businesses in our family group has one customer that's like 90% of its revenue, and that's a massive risk.
Yes.
And we are constantly working on that. We've tried to go get more customers. We got some other customers. They didn't turn out to be very good, but at least we did. We did some revenue with them. And I'm constantly trying to get that customer down to half. That's my goal. Is I can't get it down to nothing, but I can get it down to half the revenue. And so we've got to overservice that customer in that business because they're a key part of the revenue for that business. And it does cause stress and it does cause, but every day I'm saying, okay, what am I doing about that? Okay. What's our account plans? Who are we talking to? What new product or service do we put into the market in a different part of the market so we can diversify our risk?
Yeah.
And so I think that's my answer is, how are you diversifying your risk?
Yes. And it's interesting because that risk you talk about there, concentration risk, is one of the things that we look at a lot when we're doing business valuations, right? That's one of those things that impacts the multiple because the multiple is a reflection of risk. The higher the multiple means the lower the risk. It's just an inverse relationship there. And it's something that I think a lot of people struggle to get their heads around, that I actually could be growing the value of my business even without increasing my revenue if I just focus on the right things.
Yeah, so, I think that people listening, I think the best thing you can do is talk to Simon, reach out to Simon, send him a direct message on LinkedIn or send him a direct message to, Email Exit Advisory Group and find out what the levers are for the valuation of your business. I'll give you an example. I was talking to my wife last night about our house. Our house over the last 4.5 years has gone up $79,000 Australian a month for 4.5 years. 79, and that's tax-free. It's ridiculous. But so my question to everybody listening is, how much is the share price of your business increasing per month? And so get engaged with Simon, which is what I did. Simon and I had a bit of a chat and get engaged and say, okay, well, yes, you're making profit, but investing in your invisible and your intangible assets might mean that actually, while you're not measuring profit, you can measure your share price and you can do a check-in with Simon, or you could revalue your business every year to make sure that the things are coming to fruition. So then the question is, well, what is going to help me drive up the value? Find out what the top 5 levers are, and then the other 5 levers, if there's 10 or if there's 4 and 4, if there's 8 levers, whatever they might be, and say to, okay, let's do evaluation, then let's put some strategic projects in place to be to be ticking those things off. That's all I've been doing for the last 17 years. And I've
Yeah.
had the unique advantage of working with clients doing the work we do, and then copying the good ideas. And when I started the business, my wife worked at Blackmore's, the vitamin company. I heard the great people things that they were doing. I implemented those things straight away. We still do a lot of that stuff 17 years later because I thought they're great. They're nice things to do for your people. Invest in your people. Keep doing that. And that's paid huge dividends for us over the years, both on our valuation because we've got very mature management team. So it doesn't need me. It needs me for the kind of visionary stuff, but it doesn't need me to operate the business on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, find out what levers are going to have the biggest impact and then know when and how to pull those levers. So you're right. It's certainly not rocket science. But I do think a lot of business owners get a little bit too close to it to be able to sometimes identify those levers and even get some comfort around pulling them sometimes. So
Absolutely.
Mate, I want to chat a little bit about your business and people approaching you to potentially acquire your company. One of the things that we've had a lot of guests on this show that have been approached by somebody who taps them on the shoulder and says, "Hey, Kobi, hey, John, whoever it might be, we're really keen to buy your business." And I think one of the more common reactions, first of all, is, wow. Massive ego inflation. I feel pretty good. Somebody's actually knows who I am and wants to buy me. I feel pretty special. And you should. I mean, that's lovely. It is definitely an indicator that you're doing something right. But in many, many cases, they've ended up going down this path thinking, isn't this a wonderful relationship I've got with these people? And then they spend 6, 9, 12. I had one guy tell me 18 months where these people basically peeled them apart layer by layer, getting to the core of their business. And all the while, this business owner is feeling like, okay, they're digging deeper, this is going to happen, the deal's happening. They almost even, some of them start spending the money mentally, all the while to get to 6, 9, 12 months, whatever it might be, and then the entire thing falls over and they feel completely and utterly abused. So we've seen that happen. And I guess I've got lots of questions for you. I know you've been approached on numerous occasions. Was there a moment in your journey where you thought, I'm building this business to sell? How did these offers come about? Talk to us a little bit about this, because this is a mind shift for a lot of business owners.
Yeah, look, I definitely started my business on day one with a view to selling. Mm-hmm. That view's subsequently changed, and it's changed as a result of those due diligence processes. And you kind of have this, you will have this moment in time where you go, actually, hang on a minute, if my business is running really well, and I take the money out of it and I put it into another asset, will that asset outperform it? And you get to this point where you go, oh, actually, hang on a minute, it won't.
Yep.
So it's really interesting. Do I take the money out, put it into real estate? Do I take the money out, put it into shares? Do I take the money out, put it into another startup? Maybe another startup could outperform potentially with some angel investing, but it's high risk. So how do you, what's low risk, what's high risk, what do you do? So I guess you do have that moment, like how you're going to spend the money. I'm not interested in a car or buying stuff. I want to put in another investment that's going to outperform the investment it's currently in.
Yep.
So I think, I think that there's a couple of things. One is that, the moment in time when you get approached, it does stroke your ego, but it's no different to being approached by a really attractive person in a bar. They walk up to you and want to talk to you. It's exactly the same feeling, right? It's very flattering. Like, why this very attractive person wants to come and talk to me, male or female or whatever, and so you're very flattered. And so that's what we, as humans, we want that. We've got fear of approach and fear of rejection. So it's really nice when someone comes to talk to you. Now, I think the first mistake that I made, and I think a lot of people make, is the assumption that that person knows what they're doing. And when you talk about people peeling back businesses layer by layer by layer, for me, that's the first sign that they've got analysis paralysis. They don't really know what they're doing, or they're trying to get a cheaper price. Yes. They're trying to get your business for the cheapest price possible. So they're going to build you up and then crush you. And so business is a full contact sport. It is the front row of a football team coming at you like a brick wall. And that is their goal. Everybody wants to know that they got a really great price and it was a no-brainer. It was they want to say to themselves, I got an absolute bargain. And so they're going to beat you up emotionally. If you're not prepared and you haven't worked the levers and you're not informed, they're going to beat you up emotionally to get your business for the lowest possible price. They're going to erode your confidence. They're going to say it's not worth anything. And I had someone try to do that to me last week, or actually 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I was like, no, stop talking. You approached me because you thought it was attractive. You told me all the things you like. Now you're trying to get it for a cheaper price. Go away.
Yeah.
And so I give those buyers their opening statement was, we missed out on buying another business because we didn't offer enough money. And I'm like, well,
have you learned something from that?
Someone was prepared to pay more money for you, so you better lift your expectation. They didn't change their expectations. Then they came in and started to say, well, because of this and this and this. And I was like, no, I know what the business is worth to the right buyer, and I'm going to wait for a buyer that'll pay the price that I want. You can pay that price, but I'm going to wait. And so here's the tip. Don't assume that a buyer that comes to you is a 5 out of 5. Don't assume that even though they're nice and they're giving you compliments, that they've got your interests at heart. Your quote, Simon, is they are coming to buy future profit and they're trying to get that as cheap as possible.
Indeed.
And you have to start with that assumption. And so in following that, then understand that, okay, what are the levers and what's the upside to them? Now, the buyers that typically approach me with my business are looking at bolting my business up to another business that is running at a higher multiple. So they say, for example, the multiple is, let's, for the case study for people listening, say your multiple is 3. And have a look at the buyers and what's the multiple on their business. And if they're a bigger business and you're getting attached to a bigger business, they might be trading at a multiple of 6. So there's no payback. There's no 5-year, 3-year, 2-year payback on the business. They're getting payback on the day they take possession. Your business went from a 3 times multiple to a 6 times multiple. They got all their money back on day one.
Yep.
And so I think get informed. And so, for those people watching the video, you can see bookshelf behind me. There's 20 books here on my bookshelves on mergers and acquisitions, all the poor quality ones and some of the good quality ones. And that is one of the things that I think you've got to, if you're going to go into that process and you think about being bought in the future, and this is where we started, and I've had, I've obviously learned a lot, and I knew a fair bit to start with, but then a lot down the track. What I didn't know was where my mind would shift, and I'll talk about that to finish off, was that I've informed myself, if I'm going to go try to buy some businesses, I think if you're thinking of selling, go on a buying spree. Figure out how to fund it, talk to your bank, all the multiples, all the things that you need to do to borrow money to buy a business, you've got to do to sell your business anyway. So go and get approval for a couple of $1 million and go to try and buy a business. And then you'll understand how a buyer is performing because you'll give yourself some experience. Then you can go into a transaction really well informed.
So in other words, all the challenges you have as a potential buyer, they're the same challenges these other buyers will have. And so you can kind of smell the bullshit when it's coming from a mile away, right? You can,
100%.
I certainly see this all the time where we go, this guy has absolutely no ability to fund the business he's inquiring on. Let's not waste any time. And certainly let's not share any sensitive information with them. So,
Exactly right. So the final thing that I didn't realize, and that is the mindset shift. And people kind of told this to me, but I didn't realize until I experienced it myself, which is the times that you think, I've had enough, I've had a gutful, I'm burnt out, I've had no freedom, I'm sick of people, I'm sick of customers, I'm sick of everything. Those are the low points, and that's when your business is at its lowest price. And so people say, well, if your business is running really well, that's the best time to sell because you're emotionally detached from the want to sell. And so mindset shift for me, which is where I'm at now, is, well, I can't move that money into another asset class. This asset class is performing the best out of my whole portfolio right now. And so, I think that becomes an important point, which is, why do you want to sell? And it's because I want to retire, or it's because I'm sick of the industry, or, well, it's okay. Well,
Yeah.
If you didn't have to work in the business every day, would you still leave your investment in it?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's that's the bit I like about the exit advisory group, which is the advisory journey, which is, well, actually, let's work on these things that make this a really valuable business, but it's a good asset to own.
Yeah, for sure. And understanding people's reasons and motivations for wanting to exit and planning around that and making sure you're covering yourself is just so critical. I will say with the asset side of things, it was interesting. I was having a catch up with a friend of mine who's an investment and wealth manager, an advisor, and we were talking about this concept of exiting and the performance of our assets. And even she says, like, your business will be your highest performing asset if you're running it properly anyway.
Okay.
And she goes, of course, the mental shift for a lot of business owners is hang on, but my business makes me this much. How do I invest in other things? And I think there is definitely a point in time, all of us, right? You can't keep running at things, like you're 25 or 45 when you start getting to 65 perhaps. So you may decide that it's okay to sell your business. You may be willing to invest in assets that give you a lower return, particularly if you don't have to put much into it, if it's passive or if it's, so this idea of what assets should I own to support the life I want, we've almost come full circle here again, but what kind of life do I want? And therefore, how do I shape the assets around me to deliver that life? And, hey, for a lot of us, our business is going to be a key driver of that for a big part of our lives. But I just advocate for everybody to be thinking that one further step ahead and making sure you give yourself enough runway to shape your business asset to deliver in that overall portfolio. So,
and I guess there is one of our strategic modeling, and anyone who hasn't, wants to think about, well, what do I include in my strategic plan? There are points in time where it makes sense. For example, like, if you're talking about the share market, well, there's times when you exit and there's times when you enter. So, I guess, I don't want people to kind of deny the fact that your health might not be amazing and you need to exit. You're exactly right. You're at the end of your career and, we're going to go traveling and this kind of stuff. I just want to park my money somewhere with a good, percent return per annum. So, in the operational phase, and that's what I'm all about. I'm all about growing businesses and prepping them. I do the step before you, and I'm doing it myself, which is, I'll give people 10 headings. So what are you doing to continue to grow your revenue? What are you doing to continue to grow your debt capacity? Are you crystal clear on your annual month-to-month research and development investment? Are you looking at industry trends and you're pivoting to industry trends? Are you looking at geographical trends and pivoting towards geographical trends, or away? So if it's trending down in an industry and it's trending down in geography, pivot away from it. What's your mergers, acquisitions, and divestments program? And so you might not sell all the business, you might sell part of the business.
Yep.
Resource reallocation, so backing winners and cutting losers loose. Now, a lot of businesses are really good at doing that with their product line. They'll cut off the products that aren't performing, and they'll add to the products that are performing and do the mergers and acquisitions and also the research and development investment to kind of, place more winners. What's your capital expenditure? So your reinvestment of your profits back into the maintenance and growth of your business. What are the productivity improvements that you're doing? And what are the differentiation improvements you're doing? So those kind of 10 things are part of that ongoing strategy. And when you build your quarterly or annual strategy, make sure you're doing, say, 3 of those 10 things on a rotational basis. Yep. That is what's going to give you in the long term a really healthy business. And if you're somebody who's listening to this and you can say, actually, I'm going to build for another 3 years, or I'm going to build for another 2 years. I'm going to engage with Simon. I'm going to get Simon on board, and then I'm going to build, and then I'm going to evaluate. Then those are the things you want to make sure are on your strategic plan.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all fantastic topics. And if I can just add a small point to that, is that don't when you're looking at any of those 10 areas, don't look at it and say, oh, I have to get this to perfection before I can move on. Think about what is the next logical level to build that towards. It won't be perfect, but it'll be to a level that is probably outperforming other things in your company, and then shift and move to the other things and get them up to that level. and keep moving, right? It's, having balance across your organization is actually important. It'll help things run smoother, and it also gives a far better perception of how you manage risk. So, mate, thank you. Those 10 points are fabulous. I was going to ask you to share a couple of tips. You've shared 10. I just love that. It's typical Kobi, giving a lot of value here. So, mate, I know we could talk about this stuff all day. Clearly, you've got other people that will demand your time, so I'm going to have to let you go very shortly. But tell me, mate, are you happy for people to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, 100%. The best place to get me is on LinkedIn. @Kobi Simmat is my handle, or on Instagram, @Kobi Simmat's my handle. Our business is www.bestpractice.biz. It's B-I-Z. So best practice with a C.biz. And I think, my parting word, which is, for everybody all of the time, which is have a think about last week, audit last week. What did you like doing? What did you not like doing? And do more of what you like and less of what you don't like. And if you do that, then you're going to be in the right place in the future.
Absolutely. You're going to be a happier person too. Mate, thanks again. You've been a wonderful guest. You've shared a lot of insights. It's been brilliant. Thanks for coming on the show.
Mate, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you. I look forward to doing lots more of it.
Indeed.